Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about which are the highest yielding savings accounts that you can get in the bank market today. And not only am I going to give you my recommendation on which one to go into, but also I'm going to give you enough background so that you can make your own decisions and you can do your own research on them when you're looking as to where to put your money. So since the Fed's been raising interest rates and the bond market's been selling off and interest rates have been going up, something miraculous has happened. Cash actually means something today. You can actually take either money that you don't want to put at risk or spare cash that you have as savings into something that's going to actually do work for you and actually create value with very little risk. Now, those of you that have watched this channel know that for this type of capital, this capital that you don't want to put at risk, I've recommended either investing in the short end of the yield curve in the treasury market or putting into an FDIC insured bank account. Okay, so the first question is, what is a depository relationship? Okay, like everyone out there, I would say, probably has a relationship with a bank where you put your money in the bank account, and up until this point, you never made any money on it in the last 12 years since the last financial crisis. Interest rates have been so low, you get paid nothing for it, but now, all of a sudden, you can get paid something, and in some cases, over 5%. But what is a deposit relationship? You're basically investing in the bank, not in the way of an equity investment, but you're essentially lending money to a bank at a rate of return in exchange for them being allowed to use your money. So it's important for you to understand that, and once you do understand that, you realize that it is important for you to understand the financial strength of the bank that you're, quote, investing in. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is FDIC insurance. Okay, a lot of people out there go, well, why do I care about the financial condition of the bank? I've got FDIC insurance up to $250,000. So if anything happens, that FDIC insurance will be there to bail me out. Well, this is fine, but it's important to understand what is FDIC insurance, okay? Some people have a misconception. They think that because the FDIC is backing your deposit, that the government, the U.S. government, is standing behind it. This is not true. The FDIC is funded by premiums that are paid by member banks into an insurance fund, and it's actually the fund that is paid into by the banks that is actually guaranteeing the deposits. And one thing that's important to know about FDIC is that it's underfunded, okay? According to estimates, there's only $128 billion in the fund, and if the shit really hit the fan, they would need at least $262 billion to rectify the situation. So you have to know going into this that, yes, the FDIC insurance will be there, and that is an extra protection, but it's not necessarily a panacea because, like everything that the government manages, it's mismanaging the fund and it's not fully funded. So because of this, in my mind, you don't want to get involved with banks that have financial issues or that potentially could have financial issues in the future. Now, I realize that most people watching this are not financial experts or bank experts, so we have to rely on other forms of information in order for us to make an informed decision. And one of the best ways to do that is to follow Moody's and S&P. These are rating agencies that basically look very deeply into the balance sheets of these institutions and will provide a rating so that the investor, like you and me, will know the financial strength of the institution. Now, in this present environment, the two things to really look at are unrealized losses in the bank's securities portfolio, and also, in my opinion, the bank's exposure to commercial real estate. Both of these things, with the rise of interest rates, have caused issues with banks i.e. their holding of commercial real estate loans and their securities portfolios. Now, this is what Moody's focuses on, and we can access these lists of which banks are targeted, either being under review, which means that there is some reason that Moody's is focusing on them and reviewing the bank for a potential downgrade, or banks that have actually been downgraded, which means that their issues are so severe that they actually got their credit rating downgraded. And I might point out that M&T Bank, which is on this list, is the 19th largest bank in the country. So a lot of these banks are large banks, many of them are regional banks, but the point is that very large institutions can run into problems and can have credit issues. And then the last thing to look at is banks that have negative outlooks. Now, this can happen either before a downgrade or after a downgrade. And on this list here, you can notice these 11 banks. Just remember Citizens Financial Group and also Ally Financial. Those are two banks, either directly or indirectly, that end up on these lists of high-yielding savings accounts. And these are examples of two banks that you want to watch out for. So the next chart I want to go to is a chart of basically what are my top 3 picks in the sector. The top picks would be Western Alliance Bank, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. American Express, which has set up a holding company. They have FDIC insurance, as do all 3 of these recommendations, and also Discover. Okay, so the reason I'm not recommending SoFi and CIT Bank is because SoFi originated as a student loan originator and servicer. I'm just not that familiar with them, so I don't feel comfortable recommending them. CIT Bank is a wholly owned subsidiary of that Citizens Financial that we just looked at before, that was on the list for negative outlook. Okay, so we want to stay away from that. And the others, Capital One, there's nothing really wrong with Capital One, but I think I feel the most comfortable with Western Alliance, American Express, and Discover. Now, let's take a closer look at Western Alliance, because it does have the highest yield of 5.26%, and there are a couple things that I just want to make you aware of. So Western Alliance Bancorp was downgraded in April of 2023. That's very recent, and it was downgraded from an A2 rating to a Baa1 rating. So it was downgraded by several steps, which is a little concerning. However, following the rating action, Moody's concluded that the condition of the bank was stable. Okay, so stable means that even though they were downgraded, the outlook for the bank is stable, as opposed to the outlook for the bank being negative, which is something that I would stay away from. So anyway, I think Western Alliance is a good bet at a 5.26% yield. If you want to be a little bit more conservative, I would go with American Express. Lower yield, 4.3%, but you don't have the negative connotation of the recent downgrade. And also, I think Discover is a very good choice, also at 4.3%. Now, another thing to talk about is money market funds, okay? I've used money market funds extensively in my brokerage account. Money market funds that do not have FDIC insurance are primarily short-term bond funds, mostly invested in U.S. government securities. As far as I'm concerned, they are rock solid. There is very little, if no chance, of ever losing your money. In the last financial crisis, there were 1 or 2 money funds that broke par, so to speak, which meant that the net asset value was less than the stated value. So that was a problem, but it was only brief even in those funds. So I think this is a very good bet. Vanguard is an example of the money funds. In this case, it's 5.29%. But as you'll notice, it's about the same as the FDIC insured bank account. So why would you do this if you have ultimate liquidity and the added protection of the FDIC insurance and a relatively stable bank? Why would you go into a money fund? If there's a logistical reason for it, I can see it. But other than that, I would stick with the federally chartered FDIC insured bank for these high yield savings accounts. So these vehicles are a great opportunity for you to make some good money on your cash with very little or no risk. And I highly recommend it for idle cash or as a risk management method in your stock portfolio. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you got value out of this, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.